Welcome back to Fast Market on the TD Ameritrade Network. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host Kevin Hinks. But let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment. It's going to be Andy Swan, the co-founder of LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so three men here.
Yeah, three dudes talking about makeup.
Two dudes talking about Ulta. Shares have done pretty well. They've severely outperformed the overall market, up 2% this year. All-time high in April, above $438 a share. But Andy, I always think of companies like Ulta and maybe some of the other ones that have partnerships like Sephora and stuff. They're more insulated to inflationary and recessionary periods than a lot of other segments maybe that consumers purchase. But this stock's had a good run. Now we've got the reopening going full strength, where people are out and back and going back to work. What's your data look like here on Ulta ahead of earnings?
Yeah, I think you've kind of nailed it. There's a return to in-store shopping, which is definitely a benefit for Ulta. When we listened to Target's earnings call, they talked positively about the beauty segment as one of their highlights, and that Ulta partnership fits in really nicely there. We've been bullish on Ulta for a little while, since before the last report, where I think the stock moved up 12% on earnings. This is a stock that can move significantly, so you've got to be careful. But we're slowly starting to shift a little bit bearish here going into this earnings report. And the reason is simply the market kind of getting ahead of itself, we think. This is a very range-bound stock, and while makeup demand has certainly moved higher as people get out and about more than they were a year ago, skincare product demand is falling off. And when we look at Ulta compared to competitors, one of the troubling things that we're starting to see is that versus competitors, this is a company that tends to have, or is starting to have, one of the lowest consumer happiness levels of the bunch. And there's a lot of competitors out there simply outperforming Ulta at this moment. And so we think that there are tailwinds. We think, overall for the beauty and skincare economy, things are going pretty well. We're just starting to see some chinks in Ulta's armor, and with the stock near, what we consider range-bound highs, we think this is going to be a tough report for them to come out and really knock it out of the park. And so, overall, Ulta, I think, is a good company. But just going into this earnings report, we've got concern to the downside, just like we had this week with a lot of retailers. Abercrombie, Nordstrom, those. It just feels like maybe things got a little ahead of themselves. The consumer is still on shaky ground with inflation, and I think Ulta will have some questions to answer about profit margins as well because of that inflationary pressure.
Andy, yeah, one of the biggest problems I have with Ulta right now is the stock has run so far. But my question to you is, in LikeFolio's data, in your purchase intent versus sentiment, who are the leaders in this? I thought Ulta and Sephora were the two leaders, but your data shows them at the bottom half of this. Who's winning this battle? I don't even know what ELF is. I'm a little embarrassed, but what is ELF? I know what Ulta and Sephora are. I think Ulta's partnership with Target is a really solid relationship. But are they winning this battle, or is someone else that we should be watching?
Yeah, ELF Beauty is what ELF is, and not many people know what it is. They only have a few hundred employees. They were founded in 2004, but it's just starting to come on. I think the stock is at or near all-time highs, which in this environment is really interesting. And when we look at that scatter plot of those competitors, you've got ELF in that unbelievably powerful top right zone. That's right, where consumer happiness is the highest. I mean, it's over 90% for their customers are happy, which is incredible. Compare that to Ulta, in the mid 60s. And it's also growing the fastest in terms of demand. And so Ulta and Sephora are the big guys, along with Estee Lauder, in terms of just sheer size of the company, the penetration that they have, the diversification that they have in partnerships are unbelievable. But they've also got a big target on their back because of that. And we're starting to see those Ulta customers trying other things and liking them better. And so, it's just a little bit of a warning shot, a little bit of a yellow flag, I think, for Ulta shareholders in the LikeFolio data. Overall, the industry's strong. So there's no big problem industry-wide. Ulta's still a good company. It's just not as good as I think it was, maybe 6 months or a year ago.
Now, Andy, when you look at the trends maybe from Ulta, typically when we've covered this on the cash tag segment, it's usually pretty positive. But they're at the high end in this particular space. They've got the partnership with Target. Sephora's got it with Kohl's. That's been doing really well for them. But is this a conversation about maybe consumers trading down for cheaper products within this space? Because you mentioned that makeup demand's up about 65%, but skincare products pulling back a little bit. Is that what Ulta has to worry about, that the consumer, while they might want their products, might trade down?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a real concern, and I also think that there's just also this proliferation of high quality competition. That it used to be very, very, very difficult to launch a makeup line and cosmetics line, to get that distribution, to get into stores. Now with direct to consumer, there's a lot more options for competitors, and a company like Ulta, its partnership with Target is fantastic and doing very well. We think that's going to be a bright spot in this report, but direct to consumer is the wave of the future, and their competitors are outpacing them on that front. So that's what gives us a little bit of concern about Ulta. Not a red flag by any stretch. We're just a little concerned that the stock has moved a little too far at this point to the upside.
Andy, one last thing is the other things that Ulta is doing to grow its brand, like the partnership with DoorDash and the ability now 30% of Ulta stores are now offering same-day delivery through DoorDash. Now I imagine there's a real pocket of popularity there for someone who can get their makeup in a crisis, within a few hours. They've got a thing called the Glam Lab, where you can get your skin diagnosed. They've got a mobile app where you can digitally put on makeup. I don't know how you would do that, but is Ulta the leader in all these new things they're bringing to the market, or are other firms doing things like this? Because same-day delivery and makeup has got to be extremely popular.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. Clearly,
same day. I've always been able to kind of plan those trips, but I'm sure that others may be missing it. Look, I do think Ulta is a leader. I think it's a progressive company that is innovative in the makeup space, in the cosmetic space, clearly in the way that they think about partnerships. This is a good company. It is the leader of the pack, I think, in terms of innovation. And I do think that this is a very good company. It's really interesting, I think, when you guys start to put together a trade on this, if you're going to do that after this segment. You look at the way the stock has traded. It's just been in such a tight range, and it's near the top of that range.
Yes.
For the past year, up and down 10 to 20%, and just bounces back and forth almost like a heartbeat. And so when it's at the top of that range, and we start to see a little deterioration in the LikeFolio data, that gives us enough of an edge, I think, to make a play into earnings.
And do you have a score on this one, Andy, going into the report?
Yeah, pretty bearish. It's negative 65. Last
Whoa.
quarter, we were plus 62, and the stock went up 12%. So we're looking to kind of repeat that performance in the opposite direction. We'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Yeah, that stock did gap up to some resistance levels. It's right in the middle of that range right now. So, yeah, implied volatility elevated. All right, great stuff as always, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder of LikeFolio, breaking down the data on Ulta.